Imagine taking like your entire life savings,
Yeah.
your vehicles,
Yeah.
the core assets of your business, and just quite literally burning them in a public square.
I mean, that sounds like a riot.
Right. But in ancient Israel, that wasn't a riot. That was just, well, it's just part of the autumn calendar.
Yeah, standard Tuesday for them.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. And, whatever you are listening from right now, I want to start by offering a divine blessing for your day and for your entire upcoming week. May you find peace, clarity, and purpose in everything you set your hands to do.
That's a wonderful way to start. We are so thrilled you're taking this journey with us today.
We really are. Because the material we're looking at today, it fundamentally shifts how you view ancient culture and economics and faith.
Oh, absolutely. It's an incredible journey to take.
I am so glad you said that because when I first looked at our sources for today, specifically Numbers chapter 29, and we're looking at the historical context from the Holman and Neville A. study Bibles, I was honestly a bit overwhelmed.
It can be a lot.
It really can. Our mission for you today is to decode the incredibly intricate and honestly somewhat mathematically intense calendar of ancient Israel's 7th month.
The math is real.
It is. And look, I want to assure you, listening right now, reading a list of ancient livestock sacrifices and grain measurements, it can initially feel like someone is just reading an inventory ledger at you.
Yeah, like an ancient spreadsheet.
Exactly. You hear bulls and rams, and your eyes might just start to glaze over. But stick with us, because beneath these numbers lies this really vibrant rhythm of cultural memory and radical trust.
It's fascinating once you get past the surface.
So let's set the stage. Why are we zooming in on the 7th month specifically?
Well, to understand that, we actually have to look at the ancient agricultural year.
Okay.
The 7th month wasn't just some random page on the calendar. It was actually the start of their civil and agricultural year.
Wait, so the 7th month is the start of the year?
Yeah, I know it sounds counterintuitive to us.
Yeah.
But in early Israelite history, this month was known as Ethanim.
Ethanim, okay.
Right. And later, after the Babylonian exile, which, by the way, was this massive cultural trauma where the Jewish people were deported to Babylon.
Right. I remember that from the historical notes.
Yeah, they eventually adopted the Babylonian calendar, and this month came to be known as Tishrei. But regardless of the name, this single month is just universally packed with holy days.
So it's the start of the year, the shift in seasons, and just a cascade of highly orchestrated festivals.
Exactly.
It feels like an entire season compressed into, what, about 3 weeks?
Just about, yeah.
It's designed from the ground up to force a hard reset for the entire nation.
A hard reset. That is the perfect way to phrase it.
Because they're usually working nonstop, right?
Oh, constantly. You have this agrarian society that is normally consumed from dawn to dusk with just surviving, farming, managing livestock. But this month demands that every single person just stop.
Just drop everything.
Right. It interrupts the mundane to force them to look up, look back, and look inward.
And a culture-wide reset like that, it has to start with a jolt.
It definitely does.
Which brings us to day 1 of the 7th month. This is the Feast of Trumpets, which, for those listening, you might recognize as the festival that later evolved into Rosh Hashanah.
Right. The Jewish New Year.
Exactly. So the text outlines a holy convocation, a sacred assembly, and a complete halt from regular work. But the defining feature here isn't what they did, it's what they heard.
The sound of the trumpets.
Yeah.
And I think it's crucial we clarify that sensory experience because it's not what we usually think of.
Right. When modern listeners hear the word trumpet, we immediately picture like a gleaming brass section in a symphony.
Yeah, playing this clean, majestic note.
It's like a royal fanfare or something.
Exactly. And while silver trumpets were used for certain signals in Israel for this specific day, the historical notes emphasize the use of the shofar.
That's the ram's horn, right?
Yes, the ram's horn. And a shofar does not produce a melodic musical tune.
No.
No, it produces this raw, visceral, piercing blast. Honestly, it almost sounds like a wail.
Oh, wow. So it's not a pretty sound.
Not at all. It's meant to startle you.
I was trying to wrap my head around that sound, and the best comparison I could come up with is like a jarring spiritual alarm clock ringing in the new year.
That's a great analogy.
You absolutely cannot sleep through it. You just can't ignore it. Now, the study notes mention that this sound is an appeal for God to, quote, remember Israel.
Yes.
But I want to pause there because that phrasing, it always trips me up a bit.
How so?
Well, an omniscient God doesn't have a memory lapse, like he didn't forget them. What does it actually mean for God to remember them in this context?
That is a fantastic distinction to make. In biblical theology, when God remembers, it doesn't mean recalling forgotten information.
Right.
It means taking active covenantal action on behalf of his people.
Okay, so it's about action.
Exactly. The trumpet blast is a cry saying, act on your promises to us. But simultaneously, that piercing sound is a wake-up call to the people themselves.
A two-way alarm.
Right. It's a jarring call to repentance for everyone listening.
Which sets off this profound psychological domino effect. Because that alarm on the first of the month, it kicks off what Judaism calls the days of awe.
The days of awe, yes.
It's a highly sacred 10-day period of just intense self-examination.
And very intense.
You are spending 10 days clearing your conscience, making things right with your neighbors, paying debts, confessing your hidden shortcomings. I mean, it is the ultimate preparation period.
You are basically getting your spiritual house in order.
Yeah.
And during this festival, there are mandatory public offerings. The text requires a young bull, a ram, 7 unblemished-year-old lambs, and a goat for a sin offering.
It's a lot of livestock.
It is.
Yeah.
But it also includes very specific grain offerings alongside them.
Oh, let's talk about those grain offerings, because this is where the text can really sound like that boring inventory ledger we talked about.
It can get a bit dry, sure.
It says the grain has to be fine flour mixed with oil, measuring, and get this, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for the lambs.
Right.
To modern ears, 3/10 of an ephah means absolutely nothing.
Fair point. I mean, nobody's measuring things in ephahs today.
Right.
Well-
What is that in actual food?
Well, an ephah was a standard ancient dry measure. So 3/10 of an ephah is roughly 6 quarts of fine flour.
6 quarts. So we're talking about a massive industrial-sized mixing bowl full of premium flour.
Exactly.
This isn't just a symbolic pinch of grain. This is a substantial amount of food being offered up.
It's a very real economic sacrifice.
But, as I was reading through these requirements, there was one phrase that just kept repeating over and over in Numbers 29.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
It says, all these massive festive offerings are to be done, quote, besides the continual burnt offering.
That phrase is literally the linchpin of the whole chapter.
Really? Why is that?
Because the continual burnt offering refers to the daily morning and evening sacrifices that were standard all year round.
Wait, so the daily routine doesn't get tossed out just because there's a holiday?
And not at all. The baseline of worship never paused.
Wow.
These massive festival offerings we were discussing, they were stacked squarely on top of the daily devotion.
That is wild.
Yeah, the mundane daily habit was the foundation that the entire elaborate festival was built upon.
I love that image so much. The daily habit sustains the big moments.
Exactly.
But let's follow the narrative of this calendar. So you've just spent 10 agonizing days looking inward, analyzing your flaws, listening to that raw alarm clock echoing in your mind.
Exhausted.
Yeah, you're thoroughly prepared. And then day 10 arrives. If the trumpet was the alarm, day 10 is the reckoning.
The Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
This is hands down the most solemn day of the ancient Israelite year.
And the strictness here escalates noticeably. Like, for the Feast of Trumpets, the text said no regular work. But for the Day of Atonement, it demands no work at all.
Total, absolute stillness in the camp.
And it comes with a heavy command. You must afflict your souls.
Which sounds intense.
It does. And the NAA and Holman historical notes clarified this wasn't just a metaphor. This meant total fasting, no food, no water.
Right. The focus narrows intensely on this day.
Okay, so what exactly is the goal here?
The singular goal of the Day of Atonement is to purify the Holy of Holies. That's the most sacred space in the center of the camp.
Right.
To purify it from the accumulated sins and defilements of the people over the past year.
It's like a comprehensive deep clean of the nation's spiritual epicenter.
That's exactly what it is.
And the mechanism for this deep clean is incredibly visceral. The text outlines several sacrifices, but we have to talk about the most striking one, the scapegoat, or the azaz. It's such a famous concept in our culture, but seeing how it actually worked back then is just wild.
It is arguably one of the most powerful psychological rituals in the ancient world.
So how did it work?
Well, 2 goats are presented at the sanctuary. One is sacrificed as a sin offering to physically purify the space with its blood.
Okay.
But the second goat, the Zazel, its role is entirely different.
Wait, they don't sacrifice the second one?
No, they don't. The high priest literally lays both of his hands on the head of this living goat.
Oh, wow.
And he confesses all the rebellions, all the wickedness, all the sins of the entire nation out loud over this goat.
Just think about the physical and emotional weight of that moment for the crowd watching.
It must have been deafeningly quiet.
So the priest is basically acting as a conduit, right? Symbolically transferring the heavy invisible burden of a nation's guilt onto the physical body of this animal.
Exactly. And then they don't sacrifice it.
Right. They hand it to a designated man who leads it away, walking it out of the camp further and further into the desolate
It's
wilderness.
just out into the wasteland.
Just picture being an Israelite standing there. You're starving from your fast, hyper-aware of your own flaws after 10 days of introspection.
Yeah.
And you just watch this goat slowly disappear over the horizon, physically carrying your guilt away.
The sheer psychological relief must have been staggering.
I can't imagine.
A tangible release of a year's worth of shame. And, it is really important to note how this profound ancient mechanism is viewed in later traditions.
Yeah, I was looking at that. The Holman study notes draw a very direct theological line from this physical ritual to the New Testament book of Hebrews.
They do, yes.
How exactly does the author of Hebrews view this desert ritual? I mean, impartially speaking, based on the notes.
Well, the theological notes present the argument that these intricate, repetitive sacrifices of the Day of Atonement were basically a shadow or a precursor.
Because they had to keep doing it.
Precisely. Because the ancient high priest had to repeat this exhausting deep clean every single year, it showed that the blood of bulls and goats could never permanently clear a human conscience. Therefore, Christian theology views Christ's sacrifice as the ultimate, eternal fulfillment of this day.
Got it.
An event that perfectly purified consciences and secured permanent redemption, turning an annual repetition into a once-for-all reality.
It takes that visceral mechanism of the scapegoat carrying away the guilt and basically elevates it to a permanent spiritual state for the individual.
Exactly.
That is a really profound lens to read this text through. But looking at the calendar, I am honestly struck by what happens next.
Oh, yes.
Because we're about to experience absolute emotional whiplash.
The pivot is incredibly sharp.
I mean, we just survived day 10, the Day of Atonement, starvation, afflicting the soul, confronting your darkest sins, watching the goat wander off.
It's extremely heavy.
And then, just 5 days later, on the 15th day of the month, the exact same calendar commands you to throw a massive, week-long, joyous party.
Yep. The Feast of Tabernacles. Or Sukkot.
And the defining command of this festival is bizarre.
Bizarre to us, definitely.
Everyone is told to move out of their sturdy, permanent stone or mud brick houses and go live in sukkahs, which are these temporary, flimsy shelters made of branches and leaves for an entire week.
Right.
But why? You just did the deepest, most agonizing cleanse of your life. You are finally clean and at peace. Why is the immediate next step to go build a fragile hut and sleep in the dirt?
It seems totally contradictory, right? But it's actually a brilliant piece of spiritual architecture.
Okay, how so?
The Feast of Tabernacles serves a beautiful dual purpose. It forces the nation to look in two directions at the exact same time. First, it looks backward into history.
Okay, unpack the historical side for me.
By moving into these temporary shelters, the Israelites are creating a physical sensory memory.
A sensory memory.
Yeah, it forces every generation to experience what their ancestors lived through during the Exodus. When they wandered the desert, they had no permanent homes.
Right, they were intense.
They were entirely vulnerable to the elements, relying strictly on God's daily provision just to survive.
So you aren't just reading a history scroll about how vulnerable your ancestors were. You were feeling the cold wind blow through the flimsy leaf roof of your tent.
Precisely. You are physically experiencing that vulnerability.
That's intense, but what's the second purpose?
The second purpose looks at their current reality. This was also called the Feast of Ingathering.
The ingathering.
Yeah, it perfectly aligns with the climax of the autumn harvest. They are currently gathering the grain from the threshing floors, pressing the olives for oil, bringing in the grapes.
So they're rich right now.
Exactly. It is the absolute height of the agricultural year's wealth.
What a jarring juxtaposition.
Isn't it?
You are sitting in a fragile, temporary tent, feeling totally exposed, but you are completely surrounded by the massive bounty of food and wealth you just harvested.
Yes. And while sitting in those tents surrounded by food, they are looking up at the sky.
Why the sky?
Because in the ancient Near East, the crucial autumn rains, the rains that dictate whether the ground will be soft enough to plow and whether they will actually survive the next year, they're expected to begin falling right around this time.
Oh, wow.
So they are celebrating God's past protection in the desert, rejoicing over the current harvest, and desperately praying for the future rain.
That context completely changes how I view this festival. It's not just a camping trip.
Not at all.
But to really grasp the weight of this week, we have to talk about the math.
Oh, the math, yes.
Because Numbers 29 spends an enormous amount of real estate breaking down the specific sacrifices required over the 7 days of tabernacles. And the sheer volume of livestock is just mind-boggling.
It really is. It is the most mathematically complex and demanding offering schedule in the entire Torah.
When I was first reading it, I almost lost the thread because it lists out every single day in excruciating detail.
It can feel repetitive.
But if you look at the mechanism of it, it's basically a massive countdown.
Countdown, exactly.
On day 1, the community is required to sacrifice 13 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs, and a goat.
It's just day 1.
And then every single day after that, the number of bulls drops by exactly 1. So day 2 is 12 bulls. Day 3 is 11 bulls. It counts all the way down to 7 bulls on the 7th day.
Right. And if you add up that countdown, 13 plus 12 plus 11, all the way down, it totals exactly 70 bulls over the course of the week.
70, which feels highly intentional.
Oh, it absolutely is. The number 70 in ancient Near Eastern literature is deeply significant.
What does it mean?
It often represents the 70 nations of the world or the concept of absolute total completeness. But what is vital for you, the listener, to grasp right now is the reality behind these numbers.
Right.
This wasn't some quaint symbolic ritual where they lit a few candles.
No, burning 70 bulls is serious capital.
It's an astronomical economic investment. In an agrarian society, a prime, unblemished bull is not just an animal, it is your tractor. It is the engine of your wealth. It plows the hard earth. To take 70 of your best agricultural engines and burn them on an altar over a single week is a staggering transfer of national wealth.
You are literally setting your stock portfolio on fire.
Yes, you are. And doing that demonstrates a radical, absolute trust.
How so?
Well, remember the setting. They're sitting in flimsy shelters, staring at the harvest they just brought in, but waiting anxiously for the autumn rains.
Rains they need to survive next year.
Exactly. By surrendering that much immense wealth, the entire nation is making a collective declaration. They are saying, we trust that the God who provided the harvest we are eating today is the same God who will provide the rain we need for tomorrow.
Wow.
They are putting their most valuable livelihood exactly where their faith is.
That completely reframes the whole chapter for me. It's not a butcher's inventory. It is a ledger of radical trust.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And then the text brings us to this really quiet conclusion. The wild week of camping and countdowns ends, and there's an 8th day.
A solemn assembly, a final day where regular work is halted once more.
And the sacrifices drop dramatically, right?
Yep.
The massive countdown of bulls is over. On the 8th day, it returns to a simple baseline. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs.
All right.
The grand festival season just smoothly powers down, and the chapter explicitly concludes by making a very distinct, careful note.
It is.
It states that everything we just talked about, the trumpets, the deep clean of atonement, the 70 bulls, these are the mandatory public offerings.
That is a vital distinction. These were the requirements for the community as a whole. The text says these are, quote, besides your vows and your voluntary offerings.
So if an individual family was overwhelmed with gratitude and wanted to bring their own peace offering or free will offering, that was a totally separate, private act of devotion.
Right, completely separate.
The massive schedule in Numbers 29 was what the nation collectively owed to the calendar to keep their cultural identity anchored.
Exactly. And if we synthesize this entire journey through the 7th month, it truly is a masterpiece of spiritual and psychological architecture.
It really is.
Think about the progression you've just walked through with us. It starts with the raw, piercing wake-up call of the trumpets.
The alarm clock.
Right. It forces a period of introspection that dives into the deep, solemn, absolute purification of the Day of Atonement.
A deep clean.
Yes. And it ultimately blossoms into the joyous, community-wide reliance celebrated in the fragile tents of tabernacles.
So it moves from the alarm to the deep clean to the ultimate display of radical trust.
Exactly. It encompasses the entire spectrum of the human relationship with the divine. You have awakening, repentance, forgiveness, and finally, joyous reliance on providence.
So what does this ancient, mathematically intense ledger mean for you and me today?
That's the big question.
Obviously, you aren't out there measuring out 6-quart mixing bowls of fine flour or leading 70 bowls to an altar this week.
Probably not.
But there is a final, provocative thought I want to leave you with, something to just mull over as you navigate your own life. It builds on that one tiny phrase we discussed earlier, the phrase that just kept repeating underneath all the massive festival numbers.
Besides the continual burnt offering.
Exactly. The quiet, daily devotion. In our modern lives, we obsess over the big festival moments, don't we?
Absolutely.
We love the major milestones, the spiritual highs, the dramatic wake-up calls, the massive seasons of joyous celebration. We constantly look forward to our own seventh-month experiences.
We want the fireworks.
We want the fireworks. But what if our continual offering, the quiet, mundane, sometimes boring daily habits we practice when absolutely no trumpets are sounding, what if that is actually the foundation that makes those big moments mean anything at all?
That's so true. Without that steady baseline, the whole structure just collapses.
Yeah.
The quiet moments are the architecture of the loud ones.
It's really something to think about as you navigate the quiet, trumpetless moments of your week. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Numbers chapter 29. We absolutely loved exploring this ancient rhythm with you. Goodbye for now, and remember, God blesses all of the listeners.